Are you married to Ruth Finley?
Yes.
Did you abduct your wife? Did you stab your wife?
A Lifetime original movie.
Whoever is doing this has some similarities to the BTK killer.
Rich from the headlines.
He's never gonna stop, is he?
You remember that night, don't you?
Based on a true story.
It's okay if you're not holding it together. I know you. You bake when you're anxious.
Terry Hatcher.
No footprints, no witnesses. Some things don't add up.
This is crazy.
You are going to stay here until you confess.
Do you think I did this?
The Killer Inside, the Ruth Finley Story. Premieres Saturday, June 29th at 8. Part of Truly Unbelievable Movies. A ripped from the headlines event. Only on Lifetime.
Hi, everybody. Our third panel for today is the cast of The Killer Inside, the Ruth Finley Story. Welcome, Terry Hatcher and Tomo Penniket.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you both for being
us.
here. Thank you so much for being here today. Our first question is from Abby Bernstein.
Unmute. For Ms. Hatcher, when you're considering if you want to take a role, how much do you take in consideration how much being dragged around on the ground and physically otherwise made uncomfortable is there in this role? Is that a factor? And if it is it an attractive factor or an unattractive factor?
That's a funny question. Actually, when I'm approaching something, it's really honestly about the script. And if the script as a whole, the characters within it, not just mine, but everyone's, if I feel like the story is well told, and gives us as actors an opportunity to be real in terms of the journey of what these people are going through. And I thought this was an incredible script. I do not look at the specifics of, oh, wow, there's a lot of physical effort here. Maybe I should. Maybe I should have. But I am a kind of a person, whether it's a comedy or a drama, that I just completely throw myself into it 150%. So when I'm in for the ride, I'm in for the ride. And I certainly was with this project. And I feel really lucky that I was supported by people like Tomo and other cast members and our director and our crew and our stunt team that really helped us get through this.
I can confirm that 100%. Terry, I don't know if it's, I hope you're okay with me sharing this, but she was coming from another job all the way in Europe. She came on hours sleep, hours, and went right into makeup and wardrobe fitting, and we were shooting within 24 hours. So she's just, she's a committed veteran, and within days they had her, as you mentioned, being dragged around and doing very, very physical things, which weren't the best for her health and her sleep, but she committed and she didn't complain at all.
Thank you, sweetheart.
It's the
Thank
truth.
you both.
Thank you. Our next question is from So Unique Magazine.
I hope you guys are doing well today.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. It's harder to accept that someone close to you would want to hurt you. Was it horrifying to put yourself in the shoes of a character that was possibly being victimized by someone closest to them?
Interesting. I think the way I approach this, and I hope everyone can understand, like I'm trepidatious about how I answer questions sometimes, because what's important to me for the audience of this movie, I feel like there are two different audiences. There's an audience that knows nothing about this story, and I don't want to spoil for them at all what would be a wonderful, entertaining, suspenseful journey. with any of my answers. But then there are people that do know the story of Ruth Finley and the BTK killer. And for them, I think it's also incredibly entertaining because they're really going to get to look at the evolution of the minutia of all the psychological states of all these different characters that were involved in this story. That said, getting to your question, I think for me, I was approaching this more as the different levels of Ruth's personal anxiety. And very much throughout the movie, the incidences that were happening and where it was landing in her body as this anxiety amped up and amped up and amped up as this killer was more and more proficient within the community of Wichita. Does that answer?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Tomo, did you want to add something?
I think you answered that well. I think you answered that well. I mean,
Okay.
briefly, for touching on your question, and this may not answer it at all, just but from my character's perspective, I think we can all attest to the fact that, when a loved one is aware of another, their partner being under duress, constant duress, and that building because they're under threat, it's equally stressful and terrifying for the other one. And there's one thing that was clear with these two is that they were very much in love and they've been together for so long and they were so committed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Tammy Prince.
Hi, thank you both for joining with us today. My question is, in this storyline, what advice would you give someone who may be in a position such as Ruth Finley, where she's being stalked, potentially by someone that's very close to her? My dad used to always say, those that are closest to you hurts you the most. And so does that make you look at, people in your own inner circle a little bit differently, knowing her story? Or, what advice would you give people?
Gosh, I don't know that. I mean, I'm not a therapist. I feel like that's a pretty deep question. Obviously, as a citizen, I would always recommend that people surround themselves with people that offer love and support, and to eliminate people from your interior of your life that don't. And I certainly live that way in my life and recommend that for my friends and family. Yeah, I mean, it's important to keep yourself physically safe and mentally safe. And as I said, having people in your life that support that is paramount. And I think as Tomo just suggested, these two characters, Ruth and Ed, have been married a long time. They do love each other, and I think they're both lucky in this situation that they have that love connection underneath the anxious scenario that they're in.
Absolutely. I mean, we live in very different times currently. It's such a incestuous public way to live. There's been no other era where humans are sharing so much information, personal information, via social media. And even those of us who aren't even that active in it, it's impressed upon us. It's expected to share so much information, and especially children. I think children are more vulnerable now than they've ever been, children and youth, because of this encouragement, this normalization of sharing so much on social media. So, I mean, when you watch our film, you very much see that it's a different era, it's a different time, but those risks are still there, just in a different context and a different period.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Our next question is from Malik Davis.
Hello, Terry. Hello, Tamu. My
Hi.
name is Malik Davis, the Buzz Boulevard. So my question is, what life experiences help y'all tackle this role?
Well, funny enough for me, and I didn't expect this, as was mentioned earlier, I was in a job in Europe, a brief job. So I had come from Los Angeles, gone to Belgium to do a job, and then went straight from Belgium to Canada to in Vancouver area to film this movie. So and in that time, I was also trying to prepare for the script and do my research and learn lines and, figure out what the kind of acting work that I would do when I approach a character. And I was having jet lag in Europe, so I wasn't sleeping. I was also working long hours on that situation. So I really got no sleep for almost 3 days in a row, on top of the anxiety of like, when am I going to learn my lines? What I'm going to get off the plane and go straight to wardrobe and then go straight to filming, and like, how is this all going to happen? And I think for the first time in my life, I had a true anxiety attack. So lucky for me, I'm not a person that normally experiences that. I have had my bouts with depression for sure, so I can understand mental health issues, but anxiety isn't really my burden. And to have this happen to me, where I was like, literally thought my head was going to explode. Like it was so pervasive in my body. My skin was crawling, my stomach, I couldn't breathe, my heart. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, is the universe trying to teach me how to play this character? Is
Right.
that what's happening right now? So whether or not the universe was trying to help me, that was what I took a hold of. And I guess that's what actors do. They can take things from their real life and try to use it to apply it. And so I will say, in a way, as difficult as the beginning of the movie was, just technically for me with what was happening in my real life, it was an opportunity for me to really understand what extreme anxiety was like and how it could cause your body to behave physically and mentally. And so I was able to sort of take that into this movie and apply it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are excellent points, Terry, because I witnessed it. I saw it. I saw the lack of sleep. I think you're all aware too of the hours that we work in this business. The long days, and these movies, the way that they're written, the method of storytelling is quite. There's a real ambitious task set for each day, and to accomplish it, you have to be on point, and you have to keep moving, and you have to keep it flowing, and you need professionals of Terry's caliber to carry it and to be able to keep those scenes moving. And regardless of her lack of sleep, she brought it every time, and I was so impressed. And to be honest with you, when I found out about the gig, for me as an actor, I'm always so excited to work with veterans and accomplished actresses or actors like Terry, because for a fact, regardless of what's going on in their personal life, they're going to show up. They're going to bring it every single time, and she did that. Another point I wanted to make was that I think we've all dealt with mental illness, whether it be personal or with a loved one. The stigma about talking about mental illness is fortunately it's changing. It's people are really getting out there and communicating about it, and it's so important because there's a huge crisis regardless of culture with mental health. I mean, you look at some of the suicide levels with our veterans and with youth. Specifically in my country, a lot of Indigenous have 10 times the national levels of depression and suicide levels. It's a real crisis that we have to speak on. And that's one poignant thing about this movie, is we're talking about an era in the late 70s and 80s where you didn't really talk about that. You didn't discuss it much. You put those things under the rug. You keep that amongst your family, even if there's something, and even amongst a couple, perhaps there might not be real discussion about it, because we're talking about people who come from perhaps a very conservative, upbringing, where it's taught you don't speak about your emotions. You have a stiff upper lip, and you don't put your personal problems on other people, nor do you display them in any way. So that's an unfortunate part of that era, even though it doesn't seem that long ago. But we definitely explore that, and it's an important part of this story.
Right. Thank you guys for that answer.
Thank you. Our next question is from Jay Ellison.
My question is for Terry Hatcher. You mentioned you were doing another project, but what was your first reaction when you knew you had this particular role?
Oh, well, I mean, I was excited about it. It's a complicated story, and it's a complicated journey. Very dark, very dramatic, scary, emotional. It's not something I had done in a long time. I do a lot of comedy. I'm sort of known for comedy, and I love me some comedy for sure. That hasn't gone away, but I was excited to explore this side of myself. Also, it's the first time I've ever played a real person, and it was a really wonderful experience heading at that with the sort of respect and empathy that I wanted to have for who this woman was, even if it was what I imagined that she was. I wanted to do that with honor and respect. And also, it's a real situation. Beyond Ruth, the BTK killer was, unbelievably horrific and destructive and traumatic for so many families. And so doing that research as it applies to a real thing that actually happened, that was a new experience for me. So it was really, I always think of acting, whether it's comedy or drama, it's a puzzle. And you get a puzzle, and it's really your joy and your job to solve the puzzle and try to put the pieces together. And so for my lane of that, I really was excited about it. I had a great time. It was super hard work. I came back after 3 weeks completely exhausted, but I loved the people I worked with. I loved Greg Beeman, our director, our producers, the crew. It was a fantastic group of people that worked really hard to pull this off in a short amount of time.
And how difficult is it coming off one role, jumping into another role? How do you get yourself together for that?
Well, okay, this is going to sound ridiculous to you. And it's not exactly from role to role, but about a year, I know it's a bit of a trend thing, but actually a little over a year ago, so I've been pretty consistent now with it for a while, I really introduced the ice bath into my life personally. And wow. I find that I took one this morning, at 6 o'clock in the morning. I find that at the end of a hard day, even when I was in Vancouver, you just want to shed all that, whatever that adrenaline is. To me, there's just nothing like getting in cold water. So I know it probably sounds ridiculous and sounds very trendy, but it's legit. For me, it is it's a tiny little tool. You can do it pretty much anywhere. You can find cold water and just throw yourself into it. So,
especially in Canada. Especially in Canada.
Especially in Canada. That's right.
Wow. Thank you, and continued success.
Thank you.
I have to say quickly, because Terry and I never actually got to discuss that, and I'm a big fan of it because I was actually born and raised in Northern Canada. And Terry, yes, it's trendy, but it works, and there's a reason it works too, is because it's also a therapy that's been around for thousands of years. People forget that the Norwegian culture, Finnish culture, Russian culture, especially indigenous culture, have always done like sauna and cold. Sauna and cold, it's been around, and I'm a big fan of it too, and I do it regularly. And if it is one of the best ways to deal with anxiety. I know we're talking about the wrong thing here, but anyway, I had to support that.
Believe me, I was doing an ice bath in the morning before I went to work and at night when I came home every day in that little tiny hotel room that didn't have room service or anything.
You've got stories about that hotel room.